Alright, I got here the second of the two ash logs. This log is just about 8 inches or so too long for my sawmill. So I'm going to have to cut off just a little bit of the end of it. I'm going to cut it about here. So I'm going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches off this end. And I'm going to square up that end a little bit. Well, I'll probably just take the 8 inches off here and that'll be enough. This ash log is very heavy. And the limits of my sawmill are not so much the length of the log I can handle, it's the weight of the log that I can physically maneuver. This is about the limit. So this is a like a 6 foot 6 inches of ash. It's 12 inches in diameter at the thin end, a little wider at the thick end. And it's a wet log, so this thing weighs a lot. Don't know how much, but it's all I can do to lift up one end. So let me get this oriented. That end will be down there, but first I'm going to cut off this with the chainsaw. So there's the little stump I cut off. Wonder what I could do with that. Alrighty, just took that little knob off the end of the log, just this bit of wood here, so I could get it sitting down a little flatter. That's the orientation that I'm going to go for on my first couple passes. So first cut is going to get rid of a bunch of wood up here, but get us into some pretty thick stuff. So I'm just going to go mount some hardware now to get the log clamped into place. Push it up a little bit closer to the blade on this end so that I will clear it when I get down to this far end. Back in a minute. So that is our first pass on this log. Again, it is a very wet log, but just going slowly, very slowly. It did a nice, the sawmill went through this very nicely. Got a little bit of core wood in there coming through. Now the piece that I cut off, I recognize that this is a very thick section here at this end. And what I'm expecting to do is actually make a cut here, and then I'll mill off a couple pieces out of this bit. You can see I have a little friendly neighbor crawling around. There's been a few of those in this log. Anyway, set up for the next cut, and I'll just go through the remaining cuts just on film. I won't do any commentary. Like we had a little bit of an infestation starting to happen down here, but that's we can cut that out pretty easily. And our next piece of the slab we cut off, just a mirror image of that one. Really nice piece of wood here. Oh, and there's a little creepy crawly coming out of the woods. Okay. So I'm gonna flip this log over now and start milling on the other side. that will show up on the time lapse, but the blade broke. I'm frankly not surprised. I'd cut a lot of lumber with that blade, and I've sharpened the blade several times. In fact, I just sharpened it before I made this cut. The blade wasn't under any mechanical stress during that cut, and I know that because the bearing over here was bearing here was hardly spinning, which means the blade was doing all the cutting simply on the sharpness of the blade and not because I was pushing it to any length. But I think just metal fatigue over time, running the blade around these small wheels, which is really what they are. They're much smaller than would normally be used. Normally you'd have at least a 14-inch blades or wheel. This is a 12-inch wheel. However, it did well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that blade with one of my older blades that's slightly smaller and fewer teeth. So it'll be a slow cut, of course, to get through this. In the meantime, I'll order a new blade. It'll take a few days for me to get that. But anyway, that's where we are. So I'll come back when I have the blade put back on here, an older blade put back on. I'll give it a sharpen before we run it through. Back in a minute. And looks like we made it. That is a beautiful piece of almost clear. We've got a little bit of heartwood right down there at the bottom where a knot came through. It doesn't present like a knot, so that's nice. Beautiful piece. Here's the piece we cut off. You can see the difference in the blade. The blade that I had been using, the 1-inch blade, it's a rough blade, so rough cutting. And you can see how the sawmill marks really show up here. Then we switched at this point to the new blade, which was a 3/4 inch blade, 3 teeth per inch. It makes a much finer cut. And in fact, even the teeth offset aren't nearly as pronounced as they are in the bigger blade. So it makes a narrower cut as well. Okay, I'll rewind the saw. We'll see if we can get one more cut out of this. Possibly 2. And that will be the last slab that I cut off this log. I'm keeping this piece, this is just about 2 1/4 inches thick. I'm going to keep that thick because I like being able to cut this out and this out, and I can make good legs and stuff out of that. That's nice thick material. So I want to keep that as is. It was interesting that this cut just kind of got into the core of the wood on this piece, but we must have been right on the fringe of that because I only got a little bit of the core here. Just an interesting observation of the cut. So the little blade did a good job with this. I will be ordering. I haven't ordered the new blades. I had to get some information about what to order, but I have new blades. I'll be ordering new blades and get them on the sawmill for our next round of cutting. Anyway, so that's that. I will call that a video. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.